Thrown out as a teen over my brother's lies, years later my parents see my success and suddenly want money after abandoning me. Imagine being kicked out of your home at 15, not by some stranger, but by your own parents. All because your golden child twin brother spun such a web of lies about you, fabricating stories so twisted they cost you everything. That level of betrayal? It doesn't just cut deep, it rearranges your entire world. Growing up, it was clear my twin brother and I were living in two completely different realities. My parents? They genuinely seemed to believe he was destined for greatness, while I was, the black sheep. All because I loved sports and friends more than burying my head in books. The constant comparisons, the way they chipped away at my self-esteem from such a young age, it was brutal. I remember watching him have these extravagant birthday parties, surrounded by friends, while I was an afterthought. He'd have sleepovers all the time, but me? I couldn't even bring my own friends home. Honestly, I loathed every minute of my childhood. The only person who saw me, who truly cared, was my grandmother. When she visited, she'd always bring my favorite chocolates, sometimes slip me a few dollars so I could treat myself. She was my only ray of sunshine. As the years went by, that blatant favoritism morphed into something darker, emotional abuse. They'd openly mock my grades, belittle my hobbies. It felt like no matter what I did, I could never, ever be the perfect child they wanted. Even when I excelled at sports, they banned me, insisting I focus only on studies, just like my brother. It was so frustrating. I felt utterly helpless. Then came my sophomore year. I got grounded again, but this time? The crime was having Snapchat. Yeah, Snapchat. Like every other teenager, I just wanted to connect with my friends. But to my parents? This was a massive crime, a breach of trust because I was communicating with people they didn't approve of. They went absolutely ballistic. They trashed my room, threw my stuff around. Then, they took the doors off my hinges. They told me I'd have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Can you even imagine? Watching my parents abuse me like that, you'd think my twin brother would have my back, right? Nope. He made my life even worse. The toxic environment they created gave him free rein to exploit the situation. He started lying about me constantly, falsely accusing me of things I never did so he could get away with everything. Stole something? Effortlessly blamed me. And my parents, always ready to believe the worst about me, just ate up his lies. He'd demean me in front of my friends at school, make fun of my appearance. The irony? I had a wide circle of friends because I was open and approachable. He, on the other hand, struggled socially. And he resented me for it. This jealousy, this simmering bitterness, it hit a boiling point on our 14th birthday. Nobody showed up for him that year. I still don't know why his friends did that, but it crushed him. In stark contrast, my friends took me out for ice cream. I had a wonderful day. And that infuriated my brother. So, he decided to get revenge. He started spreading false rumors at school, portraying me as this spoiled brat. But it got darker. Much darker. He started telling everyone I was allegedly physically abusing him at home. And then, he took things to a truly disturbing level to fabricate evidence. He would punch himself. He'd inflict injuries like a black eye or a bruised shoulder. The next day, he'd confidently walk into school, parading these self-inflicted wounds as proof of my supposed violence. When my parents questioned him, he'd just lie, saying it was from playing football. His lies, those fake black eyes? They started gaining traction. People began to believe his twisted version of events. It wasn't long before the whispers started. Even my friends began to look at me with suspicion. At first, it was subtle. Friends who used to chat in the hallways suddenly became distant. Invitations to hangouts? Fewer and farther between. It was like a switch flipped. People were hesitant to associate with the spoiled girl accused of violence. My heart just ached. One day, I finally mustered the courage to ask my ex-best friend why everything had changed. And that's when she opened up. She revealed the detailed, horrifying lies my twin brother had been spreading. Accusations of things I had never done. I was in shock. Disbelief. Betrayal. It felt like the ground had just given way beneath me. My brother, my twin, the person I grew up with, was actively destroying my life. It was a betrayal that cut so deep, leaving a knot in my stomach and a heavy, heavy heart. I confronted him the next day after school. He just ignored me. I begged him to stop lying. He just smirked and told me I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words. His lies, his behavior, it was genuinely starting to scare me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I knew they'd believe him over me. The isolation stung. I'd always been so open, so eager to make connections, and now his jealousy-fueled lies were tearing down everything I'd built. Even the teachers started catching wind of the rumors. It was surreal, like living in a parallel reality where my true self was completely overshadowed by the malicious story spun by my own twin. The lies had grown beyond mere teenage gossip. They were shaping how everyone truly perceived me. Then, my worst nightmare came true. The nasty rumors reached the principal's ears. He called me, my brother, and my parents into his office. My heart pounded. I sat there, hoping, praying, my brother would finally come clean. Instead, he doubled down. He straight up told the principal the rumors were true, painting me as this bully who beat him up when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as he spun this twisted tale about me being angry because he got more love. It was all a bunch of lies, but he stuck to his story like glue. My mom? She started to cry, holding on to my brother like he was some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort him, telling him it was brave to speak up, promising he'd make sure nothing would ever happen to him. Not me. Him. I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to swim to the surface. But my brother just kept at it, insisting I was this angry, violent person. My mom's tears just kept coming, and she'd give me accusing looks. It was like fighting against a solid wall of belief in his made-up story. The principal reprimanded me strongly. He said the school didn't tolerate bullying, that these were grounds for suspension. I pleaded with him not to suspend me, but he shook his head. I can't just let it slide, he said. Tears streamed down my face. I begged, I didn't do anything to him. But he was firm, a 10-day suspension, to make an example. It hit me hard. I cried even harder, practically begging him to reconsider. My parents, angry and embarrassed, dragged me out of that office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to plead my case, make them understand, but they weren't having any of it. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. But when we got home, things took a truly drastic turn. Out of the blue, my dad started packing my stuff. I was shocked, confused. What was happening? My mom asked him, but he just shouted. He said he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was crying, practically on my knees, begging my brother to tell them the truth. He just stood there, cold, completely unmoved by my tears. My dad kept packing, then threw my suitcase into the foyer. I clung to his legs, still begging him not to throw me out. It was like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house and that he would ask his mother, my grandmother, to come pick me up if she wanted to. It felt like the world had completely crumbled beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my belongings, kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother did show up. She gathered my things, helped me put them in her car, made sure I had my seatbelt on. Then she walked to the front door, and when my dad opened it, she just erupted. She yelled at him for treating me this way. With stern determination, she warned him, if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS. What he'd done to a child like me, she said, could land him in jail. My mother, trying to deflect, said it was my fault. But my grandmother wasn't having any of it. She stood her ground, defending me, emphasizing I was just a child who didn't deserve such heartless treatment. That was the first time I truly understood how powerful my grandmother was. She didn't cower. She didn't believe their lies. She trusted me. And then, we drove away, leaving behind the only home I had ever known. I can't even begin to put into words the indescribable pain I felt. I just cried on her bed, refusing to eat, even though she urged me. I told her everything my brother had done, and she was shocked. But she assured me she believed me. And finally, I had one person who had my back. When those 10 days of suspension finally lifted, returning to school felt like stepping into a lion's den. The faces of my classmates spoke volumes: judgment, whispers, sidelong glances. The weight of those false accusations just hung in the air. My brother? He totally ignored me, acting like I didn't exist. He'd even made friends with a few people who believed his side of the story, who saw him as the victim. No matter how much I tried to tell my truth, it fell on deaf ears. I was an outcast, branded with an unjust label that clung to me like a shadow. In the classroom, the cafeteria, the corridors, eyes met mine with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner. Head down, I'd attend my classes, eat lunch alone, and go straight home. My parents, through all this, never once called to check up on me. My grandmother, though, constantly reminded me it wasn't my fault, that life would eventually be okay. I graduated high school with good grades, clinging to the hope of college. And when I finally went, that's when I experienced freedom for the first time. No one watching over my shoulder. No one comparing my grades. No one trying to compete with me. I met incredible people, formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars from my past, I focused on putting it all behind me, on truly living this college experience. It was during this time I discovered my knack for content writing. I'd always wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it was sustainable. But to earn some side money, I decided to freelance. I signed up on various sites, landed clients. And slowly, steadily, I built my portfolio. I kept that side hustle going through college, never asking my parents for a penny. When I graduated, I realized this could be my full-time job. And it was. Because of my multiple clients and long-term relationships, I was doing incredibly well. Being financially independent? It wasn't just about money. It allowed me to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling, it truly helped heal me from my past. It wasn't easy, but I saved, I took a chance on myself. I've seen so much, and yet, there's so much left to explore. The only person I considered family through it all was my grandmother. I absolutely adored her. She was sad when I moved out, but she understood I needed my independence. Despite my hectic schedule, I made sure to be there for her, visiting on weekends, sharing meals, or just sitting on her porch, talking for hours. I dedicate entire afternoons to helping with chores or taking her for walks. Recently, I finished one of the most important projects of my career. I can't name the brand, but I was so lucky to write for them. After it was done, I asked for positive reviews, which they happily gave. I screenshotted them for Instagram, because working with this brand was a huge deal. As expected, other writers reached out, congratulated me, reposted my story. Messages started pouring in from strangers needing help. Even my relatives noticed, some reaching out to congratulate me. Then, my college principal contacted me. He'd seen how well I was doing and wanted me to speak at a seminar, to talk about building a career as a content writer. I was nervous, public speaking isn't my thing, but I took the chance. Standing before those eager faces, sharing my experiences, I felt like my life had come full circle. I spoke about my struggles, how hard I worked. It was genuinely fulfilling to empower others. Clips of my speech even went viral. It felt good to finally be recognized for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel. A show about the benefits of content writing. I was nervous but excited. I talked about my journey, the importance of client reviews, how appreciation posts open doors. It was humbling and exhilarating to reach a broader audience. When it aired, I shared clips on Instagram, so proud to be on TV. And that's how my relatives and cousins finally started finding out how well I was truly doing. You see, my parents never talked about me. So, they had no idea I was working with big brands, getting invited on TV. Word spread quickly through the family. I guess the TV interview must have finally reached their ears too. Because just a few days later, I was working on a project, phone on silent. When I checked it, there were 6 missed calls from my mom. I was utterly shocked. After all those years of silence, why was she calling? Hesitantly, I called her back. She picked up immediately. I asked if everything was okay. And my mom, she started congratulating me. My dad, probably right there with her, jumped in, asking about my life, my well-being. I answered without much thought. It didn't strike me as unusual until they started asking, "How much are you earning these days?" I told them it was none of their business. My dad, without missing a beat, said, "We're family, you shouldn't be shy." I told him I was doing well financially. That's when my mom started in on how hard their life was these days. My brows furrowed in suspicion. Here's pretty much how that conversation went down. Mom asterisk we're retired now, and we've been wanting to renovate the house for a while. It's not in the best shape, but we have no savings left. Me asterisk okay, Mom asterisk your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview, we thought maybe you could help us out by paying for the renovations. Dad asterisk after all, we are family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We can really use your help. Me asterisk are you joking with me? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't talked to me in years? I don't know what made you decide to reach out, and while I appreciate the congratulations, I am not helping you out in any way. Hearing this, my mom started calling me she said I needed to support them as family. My dad added that as my parents, they deserved to be looked after, and this was the least I could do. I was so pissed. I wanted to give them a piece of my mind, but then, an idea hit me. Instead of just arguing, I could teach them a lesson. A lesson for thinking they could just mooch off me after all those years of mistreatment. I told my parents I would help them, if and only if they agreed to my demands. My dad, curious, asked what it was. Without hesitation, I laid it out. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit, in front of our entire family and all their friends, that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had tarnished my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate my brother the same way they had humiliated me by believing his lies. I wanted them to take accountability for their actions. To acknowledge the pain they had caused. Hearing my impossible condition, my dad started questioning the necessity of such an admission. My mom told me how unnecessary this all was, that we could have a private discussion without involving others. But I held my ground. This condition was non-negotiable. A prerequisite for any assistance. As the tension escalated, my dad raised his voice, asserting his role as my father, emphasizing it was my duty to help my family in need. My mom, in a last-ditch effort, urged me to do the right thing, bringing up all the years they had spent raising me. I couldn't help but find the irony in their sudden appeal. I reminded them of the past. The fact that they had kicked me out, and it was my grandmother who had raised me, not them. They got more and more agitated, but I told them firmly, if they wanted contact and financial assistance from now on, then the truth needed to be acknowledged publicly, and my brother needed to face consequences. Since that conversation, my parents have been incessantly calling me. I'm ignoring them. Honestly, I'm starting to regret even calling them back that day. Am I really in the wrong for not helping them after all of this? Update 1 * wow. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I've received from all of you? It's been absolutely overwhelming. It's heartening to know I'm not alone, and I'm glad so many of you agree I shouldn't engage with my parents or even consider helping them after what they put me through. The reason I even gave them such an impossible condition was because I knew, deep down, they'd never go through with it. I know they love my brother too much, and even if they figured out by now it was all his lies, they'd never put him through what they put me through. But then, earlier today, my brother sent me a nasty text message. My parents had tried contacting me again, and I'd refused to pick up. And this is what he wrote, verbatim: "Hey sis, it's been a long time since I saw you, and I can tell you that every day without you in my life has been great. I heard that Mom and Dad reached out to you, and you gave them a crazy ultimatum. They are never going to go through with it, you know that, right? They clearly never loved you, and they will never do anything to hurt me. I admit that I did lie about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time since then, so stop being so selfish and try to move on from the past. You are unmarried and childless anyway, so why do you not want to help them out by paying for their repairs and renovations around the house? Do the right thing and be a better daughter. Reading that message? It felt like a stab to the chest. The sheer audacity to dismiss my struggles, to brush off my conditions, spoke volumes about his complete lack of empathy. And the attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my unmarried and childless status? It was another layer of pure insensitivity. His insinuation that I should prioritize their needs over my own well-being was not just offensive, it highlighted just how little he thought of me. And that was it. Fueled by frustration and a burning desire for justice, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands. To finally reveal the truth that had been hidden for far too long. I sat down and wrote an email. To my parents, and to every close relative I could think of. I shared the painful, agonizing details of my childhood, the unfair treatment I'd endured under their roof. I described the strict, oppressive environment, how they treated me compared to my twin brother. And yes, I delved into the malicious, completely untrue rumors my brother had spread in school, the ones that led to such severe consequences and absolutely destroyed my reputation. I wrote about how my parents had kicked me out to the curb, and how, if it hadn't been for my grandmother, I might have been dead in the streets. And then, at the very end, I asked everyone to read a message my brother had just sent me. I attached the screenshot. It was a clear, undeniable confession that I hoped would finally expose the lies that had persisted for far too long. I sent that email just an hour ago. And I know, that all hell is about to break loose. I'll update you next on how my family reacts. Update 2 *. It's been a month since my last update, and oh boy, a lot has happened. As you can imagine, my family absolutely erupted after receiving that email. My parents have been getting an earful from relatives who were completely unaware of the favoritism and emotional abuse I endured. So many family members reached out to me, apologizing for not being there, saying they had no idea. It was a mixed bag of emotions, but mostly, it felt like a tiny piece of justice. But my brother and my parents? They sent me a barrage of text messages. They started off angry, then became increasingly abusive and even violent in their language. So, I did what I had to do. I reached out to a lawyer, who promptly sent them a cease and desist notice. It basically warned them to stop contacting me, or they'd face dire legal consequences. I guess that must have scared them straight, because they actually stopped. The silence after all that noise was deafening, but also incredibly peaceful. My grandmother thinks I did the absolute right thing by letting everyone know what happened, and she supports me 100%. She's truly the only person who matters to me in all of this, so knowing she has my back means everything. Update 3 *. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to report that everything in my life is finally going well. Professionally, my content writing business is flourishing. The invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts just keep rolling in, solidifying my position as a respected figure in my field. And my grandmother? We're as close as ever. I even took a week off recently just to spend some quality time with her. She's really into gardening these days, and she educated me all about her various flowers and herbs. Those moments with her, whether sharing meals, engaging in heartfelt conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, are my most cherished memories. My family hasn't contacted me since that letter from my lawyer, and honestly, I'm happy they're staying away. Personally, I've started therapy, and I'm really focusing on healing myself, on processing everything. I think this will be the last update for now. Music.